Gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. In this video today I want to talk about red flags. Now if you've seen some of my videos in the past, you'll know that I talk a lot about red flags and what to watch out for. But is it possible that some of these red flags are just a load of old bollocks? Okay, so this video that I'm making today was inspired by another video that I recently saw that was put out by an agency, and they are referencing my channel in there. Well, I believe that they're referencing my channel in there, where they talk about how there are vloggers online that are making videos about scammers and what the girls are up to in Ukraine and all that sort of stuff. So it got me thinking. And I'll give you a little bit of context about a story that they told in the video. I'll also put a link down below too, so you can go check them out as well and see what that company is about as well. So basically what they were saying is that one of their clients, a man, he came to their agency and he went out on a date with a woman, and during this date she made some comments about the quality of the camera on his new iPhone. And he took exception to this. Now, if you sort of look at the video, I mean, you have to take it for the face value of the video. He basically went back to the agency. He said, she's a scammer. I've watched videos online about this and she's talking about iPhones. And he basically told the agency that she's a scammer. He doesn't want anything to do with her. You know, next please. Now, we don't know exactly what happened in that story there, but one thing that I can say is that this guy, if this is true and there's no other red flags there, that this guy clearly overreacted. If all she mentioned was that his camera had had the ability to take nice photos, that's not even really a red flag. Okay, so I think it's important to kind of take note of that. But one thing this video did get me thinking about is, at what point do we think a red flag is a red flag? In that case that I've just told you then, that's clearly not a red flag, and I don't know, maybe the guy didn't like her, maybe there was other red flags, we don't know. I find it hard to believe that a guy can just take exception to that after reading that there are scammers out there. But you never know, he could just be very, very sensitive. But I'll go back to that part of the story a little bit later on with some other thoughts as well as to what possibly should have happened to prevent this from happening in the first place. I mean, I talk a lot about scammers, you know, and I drive it home, I really do, because I've been caught up in scams, and I've talked to, I'm going to say, I don't even know, maybe 100 guys that have been scammed. So I don't think that anyone out there, any agency or matchmaker or anything like that, can say, you're overreacting with the scams. You know, there's no scams here, you know, you don't have to worry about scams. You know, there are some, but there's none. I think that in itself creates the problem as well. I think that by bringing it to light, what it does is it educates guys going over there. I mean, there was no videos like this when I went to do this. If there was, the first lady that I dated, I would have picked up straight away that she was a scammer, that she was just a pro dater wanting to get kickbacks from restaurants. I would have picked it up straight away and I wouldn't have wasted a week. So I think it can be kind of dangerous to say that there are no scammers. I think it's fair enough if an agency or matchmaker or whatever says, don't worry about scammers in our company because we get rid of them. It's fair enough for them to say that, but and I've always said this, I just don't believe that you can screen a person. No different, or you can't screen the ladies. No different than not being able to screen the guys. I mean, all you can do is take face value. Check for criminal records, check that they're married, whatever. Same thing with the guys. And even in legitimate agencies, there's always going to be a lady that will take advantage. And quite often, it's not actually that lady's fault. Quite often, it's guys that are pushing gifts towards them, and they're going to say yes, okay? Let's just think about it for a second. Let's just forget about Ukraine. Let's just think about the West. Let's say you go out on a date, and on the second date, you turn up with an iPhone, and you say, I bought this for you because I like you. Is she going to turn it down? The answer is no. She's not going to turn it down. There may be a few women that are saying, I don't want any gifts from you, but she's probably going to take it. It's an iPhone, right? She's going to take it and say, thank you, what an amazing gift, whether she likes you or not. And quite often it's this type of like gift buying, trying to win her over with money and gifts and holidays and things like that, that contributes to the problem as well. So we can't just say, oh, well, it's just the scammer's fault. the scammers wouldn't be there if the guys weren't giving these gifts and encouraging it. I also think that the agencies, they should acknowledge the fact that things can happen and they shouldn't completely rule it out, right? Because one lady might scam me because she doesn't like me and she is genuinely looking for love, let's just assume. She might scam me because she doesn't like me, but then she might not scam this other guy because she likes him. And those are things that we have to think about. There is no formula. You can't add numbers together and come up with the perfect scenario. But I think having the red flags up your belt is a must. I don't care what anybody says. It is a must. But I think it's important also to define what a scammer is. Okay? Because guys are quite quick to jump on what a scammer is and what a scammer isn't. And have they been scammed? And it becomes too easy to feel like you've been scammed. A friend of mine in Ukraine, we talk about this all the time, and she's always saying she's not a scammer. And I'm saying, well, she's clearly a scammer, right? She clearly is a scammer. Well, you don't know that. No, I don't know that, but there was all those red flags and she took money, so I'm going to say that she's a scammer. But quite often there are other sort of examples that go around which you look at it and you go, that's not a scammer, okay? And it's important to realise this. A good example is, and I've heard it many times before, is that a guy takes a woman out on a date and they go out for dinner and everything as well, okay? And he does it again the second day, the third day, the fourth day. After the fourth day, there's no real spark. She doesn't want to hold his hand. She doesn't want to kiss him. And maybe she just completely disappears or she stops messaging him. I've heard guys say that she's a scammer because she's coming out for the free meals. Now, I don't agree with this at all, okay? Part of this is the courtship part, okay? She might agree to come out with you, but she's not attracted to you. But she gives you a chance. She goes out 4 or 5 dates and realises that she actually doesn't like you at all. But she gave you a chance. I mean, she could say no from the start, but she's given you the opportunity to win her over, I guess you could call it. That's not a scammer. That is not a scammer at all. Even if on the second date you turn up with a massive bunch of flowers and a new iPhone and you give those to her and she takes them away and the same thing happens, she's still not interested. She's still not a scammer. You're the one that's given her gifts. In saying that, if on the second date she starts suggesting that you buy her an iPhone in some way, I mean, and it has to be pretty definite. Like if she just points out the fact that her iPhone broke, it's a red flag, okay? But that's all that it is. It's just a red flag. If she starts talking about how her grandmother needs some money in the village, well, that's another red flag. So at what point do you go, right, that's enough? Well, there is no answer for this. It's up to you to know what the red flags are and use your own intuition. And sometimes intuition gets stronger as experience grows as well. But having the knowledge at the start, yes, it can make you oversensitive, okay? But what's the alternative? To know nothing and just go over there the same way I did and most other guys that have done it in the last 10, 15 years? No, I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think the right way to think about it is to be realistic about what the red flags are. I mean, I've heard stories about women on the first dates like trying to convince the man that on the second date, it's customary to buy expensive gifts for Ukrainian women. That's what they expect. Well, she's a scammer because that's not what they expect at all. In fact, out of this, most of the dates I've been on, most of them have been legit. I'm going to say 90% are legit. And the stories that I tell you are a very, very small percentage. And even if there are red flags, I have seen them through. I'll give you an example. When I was spending a lot of time with one girl, and she was awesome, and we had the best time together. But right from the very start, there was a red flag. Okay? And I didn't question her about it. Instead, I just used what I knew, what I had learned, to just try and figure it out. I would ask her questions about these things. I'd ask her questions about her parents. And I was trying to piece these together about her past relationships. And I was starting to piece together a bit of a story. And we still continued to hang out for a few weeks. And it wasn't until later on that I basically thought, right, I'm going to drop it on her. This is what I believe it is. And I dropped it on her one time when we were having coffee. And it blew her away that I could guess exactly what she was doing. Exactly, down to a T. And it actually, we're still friends, but it kind of ended that relationship because what she was doing wasn't in line with my values. Now, if I couldn't pick up on the red flags, like straight away within the first couple of dates, if I couldn't pick up on those red flags, I would have left Ukraine, most likely in a relationship or some sort of relationship, and maybe giving her money, supporting her if she needed it, as you do like when you're trying to start some sort of a relationship. I mean, how long we actually stayed together for about 5 weeks. So and it was not every day, but it was a pretty strong relationship, I would say. And I knew that she liked me. She wasn't scamming me. She never asked for iPhones, and she never asked me for any gifts, and she never got kickbacks or anything like that. I believe 100% she was legit. But this one thing was a red flag, and I'm glad I found out about it because I didn't want anything to do with that. So I guess the moral of that little story there is like, there was red flags, but I saw it through, okay? I kept trying to figure out what it was, and it could have turned out to be nothing. And if it was nothing, I would have lost this opportunity, right? But I was right. There was red flags, and I figured out what it was, only because of my experience. So knowing the red flags is important, but don't be overly sensitive. Let's just go back to the story of the start from the agency. That guy was like, I don't want to call him an idiot, but I just don't believe that some guy could be that sensitive. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But we're never going to know the full story about it, but my guess is that he probably wasn't that interested in her anyway. But how could they have avoided this? How could this agency have avoided this? It's really, really simple. What they need to do is they need to educate the guys when they come there, because where are they going to be educated? From me, okay? And if they don't agree with what I'm saying, they need to sort of come up with their own version based on what's happening inside their agency. I'm not speaking on behalf of agencies, and I'm not saying that there are red flags with all of them. I'm just saying in general, if you go out, and this is some information that you can take with you. But really, they need to educate the guys. But the problem is that nobody wants to admit to scammers or women are going to take advantage. But they should be saying to these guys, like, don't buy expensive gifts. You know, if she asks you for an expensive gift, you need to tell us. And to let them know that there could be red flags. By telling them that there's no scammers here and that we screen all the ladies, you're setting the guys up to possibly get scammed or taken advantage of. It happens at all the agencies. But what about the lady as well? Okay, I believe she did nothing wrong. If she's just commenting on how she likes his phone, I mean, come on, like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And even in some instances, when something is said and it could be a red flag, let's say, for example, on the first date, you ask her what she's doing and she says, oh, I had to go visit my sick grandmother out in the village. It's something to take note of, but what the agency should say to these ladies who are not scammers, who are genuine, they should say to them, there are a lot of scammers everywhere. There are even scam agencies. We're not one of them. So don't do anything that's going to make the guy think that you're a scammer. Don't talk about your sick grandmother. Don't talk about your smashed iPhone. Don't ask for money. Don't tell him your hot water cylinder has just blown up. Don't talk about those things until you get to know him, because he will think you're a scammer. It's that simple. When I was at one of these companies, after about 3 dates or so, I called back in to see them just to say hello, and they sat me down and they said, I said, what are the ladies saying? And they said, well, they think you're not serious. And I actually took offense to it. I said, why not? How are they saying this? Well, because you, and I said, it's because I'm younger than all your other clients, I'm energetic, and I've got tattoos. And they agreed. They were like, yep, that's basically the way that I look. I didn't look like the majority of their clientele, I suppose. And I didn't behave like that, and I probably didn't dress the same way as well. But they had no problem in telling me to act more serious. You know, I didn't even know what that meant, to be honest, when they said it. And I did try and act more serious, which didn't go well for me, and I ended up going back to being myself. But that's a video for another day. So they had no problem in telling me to be what I need to be in order to be taken seriously. It should be the same for both parties. You know, it's education. There are cultural differences there. You know, like, she might think that Western men love giving iPhones on the second date because her friends got free iPhones on the second date. It's up to the agencies to educate these ladies and the guys so that they have a good chance of not messing it up right at the very start. So in short, don't buy expensive gifts, okay? You're encouraging women to take advantage of men, even if they're not scammers, and you buy expensive gifts on the first, second date, you set a benchmark for it, okay? And it's very easy for her to turn into a scammer or to take advantage of guys. But the number one thing that you have to remember, and I've always said this, the number one thing to help avoid someone taking advantage of you, whether it's money, gifts, whatever, is to be realistic. Realistic in age, realistic in appearance. Be realistic, okay? That's the number one thing. If you remember that from the start, you're already off to a good track. Learn the red flags, but don't just go off one red flag, okay? It takes a bunch of red flags before, you know, you can make a call on it. There's really no formula. I mean, there might be one red flag, and it's that she's asking for an iPhone on the first date. Okay, yeah, go. But if she's commenting on the quality of an iPhone on the first date, I wouldn't worry about that too much. I'll just continue with the dates and see how you go. So that's it. Don't look too much into small red flags, but keep an eye on them and be aware of everything that's going on, and hopefully you can be successful. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. I've got a whole bunch more videos coming out where this one came from. I'll see you next time. And guys, just one other thing. If you are thinking about going over to Ukraine to see if it is possible to find love in a country other than your own, pretty much the same way that I went and did it, it can be daunting at the start. You don't know who to trust, where to go, or what to do. So we've created an online community of guys, just regular guys that went over and did it. Maybe they failed, or guys that went over and they were successful, or guys that are thinking about doing it. It's a place for guys to go and share their experiences and give advice and try and help other guys that are looking to do this. It's about being able to try and identify legit places to go, because as we know, there are a lot of bad things that are going on over there, but there's also a whole heap of good stuff as well. And by coming together, we can share the good and we can avoid the bad. It is a completely free community. It will never cost anybody any money. It's really just something just to help guys to try and be successful and to create more and more successful couples between Ukraine and the Western world. Even though we're still in early stages yet, it is growing, and there are guys giving some unbelievable advice in the actual discussions themselves. We're also adding a directory of places that you can go, and guys in the community can rate these places as well, and they can say what's a good place and what's a bad place, places to avoid. So please visit the link in the description below for ukrainefusion.com and come and join us and help to make more and more successful couples.